If you use Bitcoin and you're not using Sparrow Wallet, you're missing out. This is hands down the most powerful and versatile tool for using and securing your Bitcoin, period. Whether you're brand new or deep into your learning journey, this video is for you. I'll walk you through everything from the basics to the most advanced features so you can take full control of your Bitcoin with confidence. I'm Ben of the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session. In this video, we're going to walk through everything you need to know to start using Sparrow Wallet, from the simplest setup to some of its most advanced features. We're going to begin with a basic hot wallet, showing you the easiest way to get set up and running. In these early sections, I'll intentionally gloss over some of the more complex options and menus. The goal is to keep you focused on what you need to know in order to start using Sparrow right away without getting overwhelmed. Then, as we move into cold storage, multisig, and beyond, I'll slow things down and dig into the wealth of features that make Sparrow so powerful. By the end, you'll have a complete understanding of how to use Sparrow Wallet as your command center for Bitcoin. Now, this video is not meant to be ingested in a single sitting. More likely, you'll come back to it multiple times as you progress in your learning and want to level up to the next step. Check the show notes for timestamps so you can skip ahead to specific topics when you're ready. Before we dive in, a few quick prerequisites. You want to have a place to obtain Bitcoin, and ideally, you've already sent or received regular Bitcoin transactions, though that's a bonus, not an absolute necessity. We'll explain how it works. When I do use different types of hardware throughout the video, whether it be wallets or nodes, I won't be walking through the initial device setup. I'll just be showing you how to use them in the context from within Sparrow. Supporting tutorial videos for any hardware mentioned here will be linked in the show notes down below. So let's get started. Here we are on sparrowwallet.com. Be careful to type in that URL correctly. You don't want to end up on a phishing site that tries to get you to download malicious software. So we're here and we're first going to download and install Sparrow Wallet. So you can either click on the blue button off to the left here or in the top right, doesn't matter. It will take you to the same place. And we're led to a spot that gives us lots of different download options. So what do we need to download? We're looking for the type of computer that you are currently on. I myself am on a Mac, and it's one of the newer ones. So I'm going to choose Mac OS Apple M series. If you're on a different computer, of course, just download the corresponding one. I'm going to click on that. We can see it downloading up here in my browser, and then I'm going to click on that downloaded file. Now that brings up this handy, and I'll get my desktop up here, this handy little pop-up. And I'm just going to drag Sparrow from here into my applications like so. And I can just double click to open my applications. And I should see it in here under S, and there it is. So this is now on my computer. I'm going to open it up for the first time by double clicking. And you will likely get this little warning, hey, this is an app downloaded from the internet. Are you sure you want to open it? I'm going to hit open. When it opens, we're going to see an introduction screen. We can X out of our applications folder in the background. Let's just take a look at what it says here. Sparrow is a Bitcoin wallet with a focus on security and usability. It can operate both online and offline. In the online mode, it connects to a server to display your transaction history. In offline mode, it's useful as a transaction editor and an air-gapping multisig coordinator. Now, a lot of that will sound like Greek to you if you're brand new. Don't worry, we're going to go past. We're going to start very simply, though. All you're going to do, general rule of thumb, is when using Sparrow Wallet, look for the blue button. That will likely lead you where you need to go. So we're going to do just that. We'll hit next. It talks about public servers and nodes. We don't need to know too much of that for our beginning purposes here. I'm just going to hit next, and I'm going to kind of fly through this. We'll address this when we get to connecting nodes. And next, we're going to hit the blue button for configure server. Now this pulls up this little pop-up here. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. The long and the short of it is, in order to see your Bitcoin transaction history and your balance, you need to be connected to something known as a Bitcoin node. Now, Sparrow Wallet has suggested a number of different Bitcoin nodes that they have vetted. There's a little drop-down box here that you can choose any of these. They will work just fine for your purposes right now. So I'm just going to leave it as is. You don't need to go shopping around. The only reason you might choose a different one is if you hit test connection, which we're going to do, and it doesn't connect. So I'm going to hit test. And there we go. We get a green check mark. We're good to go. Let's move on, and we'll hit the blue button for create new wallet. So we're going to be starting here with a hot wallet. A hot wallet means that the keys to your money reside on your computer. So the funds in this wallet are only as secure as your computer. Of course, you can get malware, you can get different things that you download by accident, and these funds may not be as secure as if you're using a hardware wallet where the keys remain offline. We're going to be trying this later, but for these beginner steps, we're going to use this. This is fine for day-to-day spending money that is going in and out. And, you know, everybody's going to have a different threshold, but up to maybe $1,000, I would be fine with something sitting in a hot wallet. For yourself, if you're trying to figure it out, think of what would you be comfortable walking down the street with cash in your pocket. If it starts to feel uncomfortable, consider hardware. Anyways, we're going to give this wallet a name. We'll just call it Hot Wallet. And then we'll hit the blue Create Wallet button. Now, this main screen here in the setup can be very daunting. I want you to ignore the technical details, which we will get into later in the video. All I want you to do is it's asking, how do you want to create your new wallet? We are going to choose new or imported software wallet, which is another way of saying a hot wallet that's on your computer. We're going to click that. And then it says, how would you like to create this wallet? Most people, when they're interacting with wallets, they're going to be using something called a seed phrase. This is a list of 24 and sometimes 12 English words that can be written down and kept safe so that if you delete the wallet off your computer or your computer crashes, you can still recover your funds. We're going to do that right now. These words will be randomly generated by Sparrow Wallet itself. So we can use 24 words and just click right there. For brevity in keeping this thing streamlined, I'm going to hit the drop down arrow and I'm going to choose 12 words. The long and the short of it is, if you use 12 words like I'm using right now, especially for a hot wallet, it's not really going to matter. You should be plenty secure. But if you're uneasy about that, use 24. That's fine. To generate a new wallet, we are going to hit Generate New right here. This gives us 12 brand new randomly generated words from a possible list of words. And we're going to write a physical copy of those on paper and keep it safe somewhere. We don't want a digital copy because if our computer crashes, the digital copy goes with it. I suppose you could store it on an SD card if you really want to. Nonetheless, I'm going to physically write these down. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to hit the blue button to confirm I've written them by typing them back in. So I'll do that. We'll be right back. Okay, I've now written my words. I'm going to click Confirm Backup and then click Re-enter Words. We'll just type them one by one. So my first word was achieve. And you notice as I begin typing, it will narrow down the possible words that it could be. So I've typed in ACH. I see achieve here. I can just click it and continue on. I'm going to do this for all 12 words. And if I've entered all the words correctly, I will see a little green check mark that says valid checksum, and I'll see a blue button that says create key store, which we're now getting to click. We will address this passphrase thing in a later part of the video. Okay, again, follow the blue button. It will lead you where you need to go. We're going to click on import key store. We now see a whole bunch of different stuff listed here. We're going to glaze over that for right now. You don't need to know until later. Come back to this video when you're ready. Nonetheless, we're going to hit the blue apply button in the bottom right. It asks if I would like to add a password to this wallet. And what this password does is it prevents anybody that has access to your computer from getting on, seeing your balance, seeing your previous transactions, and in this case, because it's a hot wallet, spending your funds. So if you're worried about somebody getting physical access to your computer, you would add a password here. In this instance, I am not going to. And one side note that I'll say, a password is different from a passphrase. A password for Sparrow Wallet just protects this computer, but your backup, your 12 words, are not protected by that password. Anybody who gets the 12 words will not need this password to unlock your funds. A passphrase does something different, and we'll get to that later in the video. Anyways, you now have a functioning Bitcoin wallet. You are currently on the settings screen. All of these menu items on the left-hand side have now turned to blue. And this settings page, you likely won't revisit very often. So we can move away from it and just take a peek at everything in front of us. Let's go up to top left where it says transactions and click. And this is kind of our main screen. This will show us our balance and our previous transactions. Down below that, we have a send screen. This is where we set up when we want to send Bitcoin somewhere. Our receive screen where we set up receiving funds into the wallet. Down here, you have many different Bitcoin addresses that are generated through Sparrow, and this gives a list of the first 20. There are many more than that. There is a section called UTXOs. We're not going to dive into that yet. Again, we'll address that later. And then back to settings. So that is your navigation. The other thing that I'll note is up in the top left of Sparrow, you see something that says Hot Wallet. It is a tab. The reason this is up here is because you can have multiple wallets open in Sparrow at the same time. Kind of like if you have an internet browser open and you can have multiple tabs for different websites. Same thing here. You can have many different ones. If I X out of my hot wallet, I'm taken back to this kind of main screen here. To re-access it at any point, I hit open wallet. It'll show me my wallets folder, and there's hot wallet right there. And I just hit open, and we're right back to our main screen, and we're good to go. Now, I will say down at the bottom, there's this little additional log here. I'm going to say this is not necessary to have here. And if it's kind of an eyesore for you, you can go up to at the top to view, and then you can, where it says show wallet loading log, just click that and it'll go away. And you've just got your main screen here. So we're now all set up and we're ready to receive some funds into the wallet and also to test sending funds back out of the wallet. So we're going to do that next. All right, so I'm going to show you how to receive Bitcoin into your Sparrow hot wallet using an online exchange. And then for this example, I'm going to be using Bitcoin Well. Awesome place in the US and Canada to be buying Bitcoin. And it's pretty simple how to do it. So here on my main dashboard, I have a buy Bitcoin button. This takes me to a screen where I can type in any amount and it will show me based on the number of dollars I spent, how much Bitcoin I will receive. But regardless of that, I have this wallet section down below. And there's a little drop-down menu where I can add a wallet. And that's what I want to do right now. And so it's going to ask me, what wallet is this? Just so for my own reference. So I'm going to call it Sparrow Tutorial. And then I need to get a Bitcoin address for it. So this is where we go back to Sparrow and we grab a Bitcoin address. We do that by navigating on the left over to receive, because we're receiving Bitcoin. There's an address right here. The one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give this address a label so that when I see the transaction come in, I know where it's coming from, who sent me money, and I can always look back at that for my own records. So I'm going to type in Bitcoin Well. That's all I need. And then I'm going to hit the little copy button right here to receive funds. Now, side note, if you were sending from, say, a mobile wallet or somebody wanted to scan a quicker way of getting your address, you can take this long string of digits, you can text it or email it to anybody and they'll be able to send you money. but they could also scan this QR code with a phone wallet, and it would give them the exact same information to be able to send you money. Either way, I've now copied my address, of which there will be many. It creates a new one every time you receive money, but you control them all. I'm going to jump over to Bitcoin Well. I've got my wallet that I'm adding. I'm just going to paste in what I've copied. And it's good to make note of the first few digits and the last few digits, and let's just double check they're the same. And that looks good to me. I can just hit add wallet. And now my wallet is here and it's ready. If I hit buy Bitcoin, I can choose that I want any Bitcoin I buy to go to my Sparrow tutorial wallet. It says it's, hey, this is your default wallet now. So now any money that I send over to Bitcoin Well via bank transfer will instantly be sent to my Sparrow wallet. So I'm going to do just that now. This is the part where I'm going to send a bank transfer from my Canadian bank account to Bitcoin Well. And it's very quick, so it should take just a few minutes to go through, and then I should see it pop up in Sparrow Wallet momentarily. So I'm not going to show the banking portion of this in the video, but just know that's what I'm doing, and we'll jump ahead to when that Bitcoin arrives. So I just got an email transaction receipt from Bitcoin Well here. And if I jump over to Sparrow Wallet, you'll notice that the address has changed and that the label has disappeared. And this is because I received a transaction. Now, I wasn't quick enough to capture the little notification that popped up in the top right of my screen. I'm sure we'll see it many times throughout this tutorial though. And what I can do now is I can navigate in the top left to transactions. And what I see is an incoming transaction right here labeled Bitcoin Well. I can see I received a certain amount of Bitcoin, and will mention here that it says 176,588 sats. And if I tap on it, it says 0.0017, so on and so forth, Bitcoin. So to clarify here, a sat, there are 100 million sats in a single Bitcoin. So think of it like pennies, but there's a heck of a lot more of them in a whole Bitcoin. The point being, as the value of Bitcoin grows, the smaller and smaller units are more and more useful, and that's why there's so many of them. So we have that here. It also shows us a US dollar denomination. Now, if you looked on the other screen, you saw my denomination was set in Canadian dollars, but this is US dollars here. And yes, the Canadian dollar is that bad. But nonetheless, we got our money here. Now, let's just take a look at the transaction itself. It gives us a little bit of information here. It says unconfirmed. And the reason for that is and we have a little notification here that says first transaction confirmation. So what is it talking about here when it says unconfirmed or confirmations? The global ledger of who owns what when it comes to Bitcoin, it gets updated roughly every 10 minutes. And so what was going on there was it was saying, hey, we've detected an incoming transaction that is yours. Once the ledger is updated, then it will be listed as confirmed. So that's what it's referring to. And we now have a confirmation on that transaction. As there are more and more confirmations, it will kind of give us a running total all the way up to 6. And then it'll just say, hey, this is yours. You own it fully, which we do right now. But nonetheless, it just kind of keeps a tab on that. So we've received some money. We have a full confirmation on it, and we can spend it any way we like. So next, we're going to take a look at how to send a transaction from your hot wallet in Sparrow. Bitcoin Well is the best place to be buying and selling Bitcoin in Canada and the US. And now with Bitcoin Well Infinite, it's also the best place to be making large buys at their OTC desk of over $50,000. Their white glove service gives you fast transactions, no slippage, and the lowest fees. You can scan the QR code on the screen or simply head to bitcoinwell.com/BTC sessions to sign up today. And you can share your own personalized referral link to earn commissions. When it comes to sending Bitcoin from Sparrow with a hot wallet, It's pretty straightforward. Over on the left-hand side, we're going to click on Send, and it's going to ask you a few questions. Now, I know there's a lot on the screen. I'm not going to address the more intricate bits of it. I'm just going to address what you need to know in this moment. So number one, who are you paying? We need a Bitcoin address for that. Now, this could be copy and pasted. So if you received a message or an email with a Bitcoin address, you could paste it here. Or you could click the little camera button and you could scan it with your webcam. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I have a Bitcoin wallet open on my phone. It's called AQUA wallet here, and I can receive Bitcoin there. So I'm going to click the camera button and we'll scan the QR code that is on the screen so you can see what that's like. And as soon as it scans, it imports the Bitcoin address into this field here. I check on my phone to make sure that those numbers line up, that they're the same. Again, first few, last few digits should be just fine, and I can just leave it be. Here, I'm going to label it. And when you're sending, you're labeling it with who are you sending it to? This is not for anybody else. This is just for your own information. So I'm going to type in AQUA. And then it says, how much would you like to send? And you can do that denomination in sats, or there's a dropdown in BTC. So I tend to deal with sats more. It's just more convenient for me. So I'm going to start typing in an amount. So maybe I want to send over 50,000 sats. It will then tell me roughly how much that is in US dollars here. If I wanted to send the whole amount, I could click the max button and it would fill in the total amount for me. Now, finally, the last thing I'm going to address here is the fee. Bitcoin fees are set in sats, which we're familiar with, the smallest unit of a Bitcoin, per byte, meaning per byte of information that your transaction takes up. It has nothing to do with the value that you're sending. It has everything to do with the amount of data that your transaction requires. So there are instances where you might be sending a very large amount versus a very small amount, but the fee would be exactly the same. So this is just a slider. And so as I slide, you can see it will tell you the dollar amount down here in the bottom. Now, at the time of recording this video, fees are very, very low, but they're impacted by a few things. If the network is particularly busy, if your transaction is a little bit larger, and if it's busy and it's urgent, then it may cost you more. Right now, it's showing me that at the lowest amount, it is still a high priority transaction, meaning that it will go through quickly within the next 10 minutes. It should be settled. However, at times where it's busy, you may need to bump this up for it to be listed as high priority, and you will see that change here in the bottom right. It will go from low to medium to high priority. If you're paying too much, it will warn you, and I'll show you what that looks like. Go way, 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 way up. Yeah, look, you're overpaying. What are you doing? Don't pay that much. Same thing will happen on the low end. If it's really busy, it might say, hey, this is pretty low. It might not go through, okay? If it doesn't go through, by the way, it just reverts back to your own custody. So don't worry too much about that. Nonetheless, I'm all good here. I might just bump this fee just a tiny bit, just in case it bumps up. We want it to be quick, but I can see that's about 24 cents to send it. I'm going to ignore this graph. We will explore what that is later when we get into the UTXO section. So come back when you're ready for that. As we've said before, actually, let's do a quick roll call of what we've done here. We told Sparrow the address we want to send to. We gave it a label for ourselves. We said the amount we want to send, and we set our fee based on the current fee conditions. We're now ready to go. We will explain efficiency and privacy and this graph later. And what did I say before? The blue button will lead you where you want to go. So we're going to hit Create Transaction. We get a summary of what we're doing. We're going to click the blue button, Finalize. And then lastly, it says we want to sign the transaction. All of this stuff will pertain to other ways of transacting, not with hot wallets. We're going to click blue button for sign. We get this nice little bar that loads. So we basically taken our keys and unlocked the money, or another way of thinking of it that we signed the check. And now we're just going to let people know about it by broadcasting it out to the Bitcoin network. So I'm going to click that. And in a moment, we should get a notification that it's been sent out to the network. Up in the top right, there it is. New transaction, 50,305 sats. 50,000 being the amount we sent. The extra 305 was the fee. Now, every time you do a transaction, it will create a tab for that transaction. Once you're done with it, you can just hit the X and you're back to your main wallet. Notice the send screen is now empty because we sent that transaction. And we can go to our transaction screen in the top left and see the new transaction, which is currently unconfirmed, going to AQUA. That's how much went out. And we can see the remaining balance both here and up top. So we can see, hey, our balance is 126,283 sats. That's the dollar value of our balance. And down below where it says mempool, as I'm sure you're starting to piece together, 50,305. That means it's any part of the balance that is not fully finished confirming. So in this instance, we had, what was it, 170 something, 176. We sent out 50,000, and that is in the process of leaving our wallet. So we've now successfully received funds and sent funds from Sparrow. All right, guys, it's time to do something seemingly a little crazy. We're going to go ahead and we're going to delete our wallet out of Sparrow. But Ben, you have money in there. What are you doing? Why would you ever do that? Well, let's take a look and find out. So I'm going to X out of my hot wallet, as we saw how to do before. I'm going to click Open Wallet. That shows us our menu of where our wallets are. But then I'm going to do the dangerous thing, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to say, move this to trash. And I'm not just going to move it to trash. I'm going to empty my trash because I'm all in here. Let's empty that trash. So that wallet is gone. There's like $100 left in there. What am I to do? Well, we have a backup. We have 12 words where we've jotted down the backup to our money. So how do we get access to that money? Well, let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Import Wallet. And this gives me a little pop-up. And I'm going to say, hey, I've got a mnemonic. I've got a seed phrase. And my seed phrase is how long again? It was 12 words. So I'm going to choose that. And hey, it looks like I could type in my 12 words right now. I'm going to do that right ahead. We'll speed it up and move on. With my words typed in, I can now, and remember, I did not have a passphrase on this wall. If I did, I would require it here. And again, different from a password that we were asked once we set up the wallet. Again, passphrases will be addressed later in the video. Nonetheless, I'm going to click on the blue button, Discover Wallet. So this is scanning for any previous transactions that could have taken place. Now, it clearly found something. So it says enter a name for this wallet. So we'll just name it Hot Wallet again. And we'll hit Create. Do we want a password? I'm going to say no this time again. And hey, look, we have full access to our funds again. Now, the one thing that it does not import is our labels for our transactions. And why is that? It's because that is not on the global ledger of who owns what. That information that we stored was just here in Sparrow Wallet. But you can always edit the labels after the fact. But if you have a lot of transactions, that can be cumbersome or you may not remember. There are ways to export that information. We'll address that later in the video. But I do remember Bitcoin well, and I do remember AQUA. Once I get it clicked here, there we go. AQUA. So I'll just put those in again. So we now have access to our funds again. We've been able to recover our wallet fully with nothing more than our original 12 words that we wrote down when we set it up. So we have now gone through everything you need to know for the basics of hot wallets in Sparrow, and it's time to level up to what's next. For this next section, we're going to be utilizing cold storage or a cold wallet in Sparrow. This is an instance where instead of the keys to your money being located on the computer, where if you have malware that could put your funds at risk, rather you are using a device in which the keys to your money reside in something that never directly touches the internet and never shares your key information with any computer it's plugged into or interacting with. So in this demo, we're going to be utilizing the Coldcard queue, which I've got right here. It is my favorite device when it comes to dealing with cold storage and keeping my funds safe. And we're going to demo how to use it in two different ways. First, the simplest way with it just plugged in. And we're also going to show what an air-gapped transaction looks like. Now, I will note we're not going through the setup of the Coldcard queue. If you are curious about that and some of the more advanced functions that it can execute, well, you can check in the show notes down below for tutorials on how to use it, of course, here in Sparrow, furthermore, as well as with mobile solutions. So with that, let's dive in and start using the queue with Sparrow. So to start, I have my hardware, in this case, again, the queue. It is plugged in, already set up. I've put in my PIN and it is unlocked. The same flow in general will apply to any plugged in hardware that you may have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, even with my hot wallet open, I can do this. I'm going to go to File and I'm going to say New Wallet. Now I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it CCQ and I'll hit that blue Create Wallet button. Now, this is going to be a little bit different from last time. Last time we did new or imported software, but we're not creating a hot wallet. So we want to use a connected hardware wallet because right now it is connected to my computer via a USB cable. I'll also show you how to do it via an air-gapped method, meaning we don't even plug it into the computer. So I'm going to choose Connected Hardware Wallet. I'm going to choose Scan. It sees the Coldcard because my PIN is in and it's unlocked. I hit the blue Import button. That's going to pull a little bit of information so that we can see our transactions and our balance. It will fill it in here, and I simply hit Apply. I'm not going to do a password for this one. With this one, by the way, the password itself would simply protect against somebody gaining access to your computer and seeing your balance and your prior transactions. But they won't be able to spend unless they have your device and the PIN code to your device. So this password is more just a privacy measure in this instance, as opposed to a security measure when dealing with a hot wallet. So I'm going to say no again for this instance here. The wallet is now fully set up. All of the options over on the left have turned blue. And we can head over to transactions. Now, I've previously used this Coldcard queue for lots of different demos. And so there is a transaction history. We'll see that when we click here, a whole bunch of different transactions previously done with it. But you can see balance currently 0, and we can go ahead and we can begin receiving transactions into the wallet. Now let's take a look at one other method of being able to import this wallet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that tab. So the tab of the Coldcard queue. I'm going to hit File and Open Wallet. I'm actually going to go ahead. I'll delete this file that we created for the Coldcard wallet. So we'll go ahead and we'll move it to the trash. Okay. So we no longer have that Coldcard wallet we just set up. Coldcard's still here. It's still all set up. But this will double as your lesson in being able to recover. All you would do to recover a cold wallet that was deleted from Sparrow is the exact same process we just did. Okay, so that's now deleted. Let's do it one more time, but we'll import it a different way. File, New Wallet. We'll call it again CCQ. Create Wallet. This time, I'm going to choose air-gapped. Again, if I was doing it plugged in, I was just recovering, I could hit connected, do the same thing. It would be right back. Notice, I'm unplugging my device from the computer. So we are going to choose air-gapped hardware. This gives us lots of options, and you can see how hard Mr. Craig Raw, the developer of Sparrow Wallet, has been working to support all of these different options here. But we see Coldcard up at the top here, and we're able to either import a file, this would be on an SD card, or scan a QR code. And that's probably the easiest and best way to do it. So I'm going to navigate on my Coldcard to a certain menu so that we can create a QR code that can be scanned by Sparrow. And I'll quickly show you where that is. So when I'm logged into my Coldcard on the main screen, there is an advanced/tools menu that I'm going to navigate down to right second from the bottom. I'm going to hit enter to select it. And then the second option on the next screen says export wallet. And it looks like this. I'm going to select that. And we have a number of different options, but notably the second one says, of course, Sparrow Wallet. And I'm going to hit enter there. It lets me know that this is going to create a file for export, and it mentions some stuff about account numbers. We're not going to deal with any of that. I'm just going to hit enter once more. And it's going to tell me that it is generating. It then gives me some options for how I want to export the wallet information over to Sparrow. And on the screen here, it gives me the option to choose QR. So there's a QR button on the device that I'm going to tap. And when I do, it generates a QR code that can now be scanned by Sparrow. And it's animated. It keeps on moving like this, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll pull up Sparrow here. And I'm going to hit the scan button. This is going to open up my webcam. And with that, I've now imported all of that same information we did before with the USB cable, this time via QR code. I can just hit apply, no password again, and everything is back to normal. If we go up to transactions, all the same information is there. Before moving on, just a quick side note, I went back and I re-imported the wallet again the first way with the Coldcard plugged in. There's a reason for that, and I'll outline it when we go to send transactions out of the Coldcard later. Okay, so let's now see in action receiving into our Coldcard. Pretty basic here, same as before. Now, we'll note, since we have two wallets, just all you want to pay attention to is which wallet you're clicked on. If I click over to Hot Wallet, we see the balance that's still there. If I click onto the Coldcard queue, we can see that it is currently empty. So how do we go about receiving? Exactly the same. You can hit receive. You have a Bitcoin address provided to you. You can give it a label, like it's going to come from my hot wallet, because that's what we'll do this time. And then that's pretty much it. You send to that address. Now you could copy and paste it over in the hot wallet. You could scan the QR code from a mobile device, whatever. But I want to show you one cool feature here in Sparrow is if I want to send from one wallet to the other, it's actually pretty simple. I can go to Hot Wallet. I can hit send. So I'm sending out of the wallet we created previously. And under Pay To, there's actually a little drop down arrow. And when I hit that, it will show me my other wallets. So I'm going to choose Coldcard Q, and it auto fills an address for me. So it pulls an address from my Coldcard and I can just send to there. So I'm going to label it CCQ. That's where it's going out of my hot wallet. How much I'm going to send? I'm going to send the whole amount this time. I'll hit max. And then again, the fee slider, we've gone over that prior. So I'll just leave that there. I'm going to hit create, finalize, same as we did before. Sign, again, it's the hot wallet. I don't need the Coldcard yet because I'm receiving. And I'll hit broadcast. And that's going to send from my hot wallet to my Coldcard, which is why we get two notifications. Hot wallet saying you spent money, Coldcard saying you received money. As before, every time I create a transaction, it makes a tab for that transaction. But once it's done, I can close that. And let's take a look at each wallet's transaction screen. Hot wallet, go to transactions. There's the money going out, and it says to the CCQ. Go over to my Coldcard. Let's go up to transactions. there's the money coming in. And it is labeled the same here. Now, the tricky part is if I want to know where that came from, I can relabel it. I can say, hey, this came from my hot wallet. Okay. Either way, we're all good to go. We've received the money into the Coldcard, and we're now free to spend it as we see fit. Now, there's one thing I want to clarify here about using a cold wallet with Sparrow. And I want you to think of the allocation of where a key is when it comes to a hot wallet versus a cold wallet. Now, when it comes to our hot wallet here, the key is on the computer. So everything we need is right here. When it comes to the cold wallet, the key is not on the computer. The key is on this device that I've got in front of me. And unless I have that key, I can't unlock the money and move it. Now, there's one other cool thing about a cold wallet is I do not need to have this thing plugged in or connected directly to my computer in order to receive. And you can think about it like this. A cold wallet here on our interface, my computer is connected to the internet, but the money itself is not on my computer. Bitcoin is a global ledger that keeps track of who owns what. So all of the money is on that ledger. What you hold in this device or perhaps on your computer is a key that allows you to unlock money that is on that ledger and move it wherever you see fit. You can think of it like if it was a digital safety deposit box in the sky and it has a slot where you can slide in money and then it has a keyhole to be able to unlock it. Anybody can slide money into the slot anytime that they want. But if you want to take money out and move it somewhere else, you need the key to unlock it. And that is what this Coldcard serves as, or it's what the key on your computer serves as. The security differential there is the key on an internet connected device or a device that never directly connects to the internet. So with that, let's go and spend out of our cold wallet. Securing your Bitcoin doesn't have to be complicated or invasive. With NUNCHUK's HONEYBADGER plan, you get state-of-the-art multisig with built-in inheritance planning and no KYC required. NUNCHUK is trusted by users to secure billions of dollars in Bitcoin. The HONEYBADGER plan offers 204 assisted multisig, guiding you step-by-step on mobile or desktop. It works seamlessly with hardware wallets like TapSigner, Coldcard, Jade, and plenty of others, so you're always in control. Plus, with non-KYC inheritance planning, you can ensure your Bitcoin goes to your loved ones. No private info needed. Take control of your Bitcoin today. Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen to check out the HONEYBADGER plan. Debify is the best and easiest way to borrow against your Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. Funds are held in a multisig escrow where you hold a key, and the platform allows for excellent hardware like the Coldcard Mark IV and the Q. You have access to flexible conditions, the best rates, and institutional grade liquidity. If you're looking to make use of your capital, don't sell your Bitcoin, borrow against it. You can head over to debify.com to check them out, or simply scan the QR code on the screen. Looking for a simple and secure way to manage your Bitcoin on mobile? AQUA Wallet has you covered. It's user-friendly and puts you in full control of your Bitcoin with secure self-custody. AQUA also supports Lightning and Liquid Network, making fast, cheap Bitcoin payments and asset transfers easier than ever. Plus, it even supports stablecoins, giving you ultimate flexibility. Built on open source code, AQUA is transparent, trustworthy, and perfect for beginner and pros alike. Ready to upgrade your Bitcoin experience? Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen now to download AQUA Wallet today. So now we're going to go and send. We're basically doing the inverse of what we've just done. We sent from the hot wallet to the Coldcard. Now we're sending from the Coldcard to the hot wallet. So with my Coldcard queue selected with the tab there, we see our balance up top, which is now confirmed with those little notifications there. We're going to check on send in the left-hand side. We're going to choose pay to. Once again, I'll use the drop-down menu because it's easy, and I'll send to my hot wallet. Give it a label, hot. I've got about, 126,000 sats in here. I'll send just shy of half. I'll send 60,000 sats, which is around $47. And we'll do the slider for the fee. If you'll notice now, because it's a little bit busier, we can see it flipping from high to medium priority. But I'll just bump it a little bit just in case here. And then we'll follow through with the blue buttons. Create transaction, finalize for signing. And in this instance, this is where I have the Coldcard currently plugged in. So we're going to see what it's like to sign a transaction while the Coldcard is plugged in. So I'll hit the sign button and it brings a pop-up and it says, hey, your Coldcard, it's currently plugged in. I've put in the pin, it's unlocked. I can hit sign. And this now sends a message to my device to confirm if I want to indeed send this transaction. So I'll blow up my screen here a little bit, but here's the Coldcard and it says okay to send. And if I agree with the information on the screen about where it's going to, the amount that I'm sending, all of that, I can hit enter. So I'm going to do that now. And it relays the signature over to Sparrow Wallet to say, I approve this transaction. And so now we're on the final screen here. We can hit broadcast and it gets sent off to the Bitcoin network. And we should get a couple of notifications pretty quick showing us that indeed it has been sent and received between our wallets. And there's our notifications. We can X out of the transaction. Let's check our transactions here. There's it going out of the Coldcard. Go to the hot wallet. There's it coming in to the hot wallet. I might change the label to CCQ. Okay, perfect. So we've now sent one way. Let's try an air-gapped transaction next. Okay, so I am back here. I have my Coldcard queue selected. I'm going to go back down to send. Once again, I'll use the drop down and choose my hot wallet. I'll call it hot. And then I will send the max amount by hitting the max button and just the fee, just a little bit. I'm going to hit create transaction again, finalize, but this time we're going to do an air gap transaction. Now I told you guys before when I imported the wallet again with the original method with it plugged in. The reason for that is if you import it in the air gapped fashion on the send screen, it will only give you the air gapped options. It won't give you the sign button here. So that's why I did that. Nonetheless, we're now going to use the air gapped method. So in order to use air gap with the Coldcard queue using the QR method, which is the most convenient, you're going to go down to the bottom left here. There's two buttons, show QR and scan QR. The way you can think of this is when I used this USB cable, what is that cable doing? It's sending and receiving transaction information from the computer to my Coldcard and then back. So it's relaying information, but there's many ways to relay information, and one of them is via QR codes. So that's what we're doing right now. I'm going to hit show QR code. This QR code on the screen is all of the information about what I want to do. And that's what I'm about to tell the Coldcard. I'm going to say, hey, I'd like to send a transaction. So on the Coldcard here, on the main screen, the first item says ready to sign. So I'm going to hit enter there. And then it's going to say, how do you want to do that? And I'm going to hit the QR button on the device. So I hit enter. And then I'm going to choose the QR button, which opens up the QR scanner. You can actually see the QR scanner coming out the top. And I'm going to scan over here what is in Sparrow just by pointing it at the screen. At this point, it relayed the information. The Coldcard says, hey, it looks like you're trying to spend some money. Do you want to do that? Yes or no? I can hit enter to approve it. And it's going to give me a new QR code. This new QR code that it loads up here is the approved. Oh, if I can see it. This is the approved transaction. So it's me saying, yep, I sign off on that. Absolutely. Here's the proof that I'm allowed to send it. So that's what I'm now going to do here in Sparrow. With the original QR code, it gives me a blue button that says scan QR. So I'm going to scan what's on the Coldcard now. All right. And once it scans in there, I can see, again, a summary of what we're trying to do. And if I'm ready, now that I have the signature, the approval, I can hit broadcast. And there's our notifications of the transaction going out of one wallet and into the other. I can X out of both prior transactions screens, and we can see the send screen is now blank. If I go up to transactions for the Coldcard, we see a second transaction going out. If I go to the hot wallet, we can see the next transaction coming in. I'll relabel it just because it's good practice so I know where it's coming from. There we go. We've now sent from the Coldcard. By the way, you will still be on this QR screen here. You can just hit the cancel button and it'll take you right back to your main menu. So we've now successfully sent with our cold storage in two different ways, via USB cable directly plugged in and via air-gapped method with QR codes. For this next section, we're going to be creating a multi-sig vault. This is when, in comparison to our previous single signature cold wallet, you have a digital vault that does indeed require a key, but in this instance, it requires multiple keys to open. Now, the reason somebody might create one of these is that when you have a device or when you have the backup to a device, the 12 or 24 words, that is a single point of failure, meaning if somebody comes across your words or if somebody comes across your device and coerces you to give them the PIN, they have full access to your funds at that time. Whereas if you have a vault that requires multiple keys, perhaps 3, or perhaps you have a number of different keys and they're distributed geographically, then if somebody happens across one of the keys, they do not have enough to open your digital vault. So here, we're going to be setting that up in Sparrow with a couple of different hardware devices that I have at my disposal. And we're going to be chatting just a little bit about best practices and recovery, as well as, of course, receiving and sending funds. So we're going to set up a new multi-sig vault. Now in front of me, I have two devices. We have the Coldcard Q that we previously used for the single signature cold wallet that we did. I also have a Coldcard Mark IV, again, by the same company, that I'm going to be using as a second key. Now, we're going to break down a few things here, but what I'll say is the demo that I'm doing here with just two devices, I would say is not ideal. Ideally, you probably want to have at least 3. And the way that it works is you say how many keys you have and how many of those keys are required to open your vault. So you can have 3 keys and require at least 2 of them in order to unlock the funds. So this allows where you no longer have a single point of failure, somebody stumbling across a key and getting access, but it also gives you some fault tolerance. You can screw up a little bit and still have access to your money, aka you lose one of the keys, it's not the end of the world because as long as you still have 2, you can access your money. There's some nuance there. We'll go through it as we attack it, but let's set up a vault first and see how that goes. So we're going to go File, New Wallet. We're going to call it Multisig Tutorial. I'm going to hit Create Wallet. And now we're going to start diving into some of these additional features up top. You can see policy type is the first thing, and we see single signature. That's what we've been doing this whole time. 1 key to unlock your money. We're going to go beyond that. So we click the drop-down menu and we're going to choose multi-signature, multiple keys required. Now, this will default as a first choice to 2 of 3, and that's what I was talking of before. 3 keys in total, 2 of them required to unlock your money, any 2. Now, you can change this by sliding these 2 little dials here. So we could have perhaps a 3 of 5, a total of 5 keys, 3 required to unlock your money. What we're doing right now is a 2 of 2. We have 2 keys, both keys are required to unlock the funds. As you can imagine, this is a more finicky setup because if you lose the entirety of one of the keys, like if I lost the Coldcard queue and the backup to it, I no longer have access to my funds. Whereas if I had 3 keys and only required 2, I could lose this and the backup and still be fine. But that's what we're going to do just for brevity to keep this simplistic and moving along, okay? I'm going to do the connected method with both of these devices, again, to keep it simple, but you can, of course, air gap them if you like, as we did in the prior example. So I'm going to choose connected hardware wallet. I'm going to scan for the one that's plugged in. It sees the Coldcard. I'll import it. All the necessary information is here. Now there's one little change here down below. Under key stores, that's where it would pull in all the information. There's now 2 tabs. So we can see Coldcard, and then we can see key store number 2. We'll have to deal with that in a second. I'm going to designate this as, I'm going to change the name of it to CCQ so I know which one it is. And it has all the information it needs. I'm going to go to key store number 2, and it gives us these options again. So I'm going to unplug the first Coldcard. I'm going to plug in the Coldcard Mark IV. I'll put in my PIN, and then we're going to scan for the connected hardware wallet. With the Coldcard plugged in, I'm going to hit connected hardware wallet and scan. It sees it here. I'm going to hit import. It pulls the appropriate information. Again, I'm going to rename this key to MK4 or Mark IV. That's what the device is known as. So I've got all the appropriate information here, and I have both keys allocated to the wallet. So just for a quick review, it's a multi-sig. There are 2 keys, and both keys will be required to approve a spending of funds. We've labeled each key, CCQ and MK4. And that's all done. I'm going to hit apply. I'm not going to add a password here. And now the wallet is done. If I go to transactions, 0 activity. Now you may be wondering, hey, you used this device already with a single sig last time. Why is there no balance? When you create a multi-sig wallet with multiple keys, it is a completely separate vault. I have a vault where I can use this one key and unlock it and take money out. But I've just taken this key and said, I'm going to pair it with this one, and I'm going to make a separate vault where these 2 keys are required to unlock. So that's what we're doing. This is a totally separate vault. You can use this for both if you like, no problem. So we now have this all set up, and we are going to fund it and then practice spending from it. All right, let's get some money really quick into our multi-sig vault. We have some money in our hot wallet right now. I'll click on that tab. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hit send. I'll use the drop down, and I'm going to send it to the new multi-sig wallet we created. And I'll just label it multi. I'm going to send, we'll just send a half of what we have here. So we'll send around 60,000 sats, and the fee looks fine to me. I'll hit the blue buttons all the way through. Again, this is the hot wallet, so I don't need anything special with my cold cards, and that should send off and land in our multi-sig wallet in a moment. There we go. There's our notifications. Close the transaction tab. We're currently on the hot wallet. There's the transaction going out. Let's check in our multi-sig. There's the transaction coming in, unconfirmed at the moment, and we're good to go. So next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to see, how do you spend out of your multi-sig? Spending out of your multisig vault is very similar to spending from a regular cold wallet like we did with the Q. But there's some nuance here. Namely, that these two devices by design are likely not going to be stored in the same location. It kind of undoes the point of a multisig. You don't want single points of failure in the same place. So we're going to be signing with one, and then I'll show you how you might handle signing with the other in a different location. You do not have to bring your keys together ever. So we're on our multisig wallet. I'm going to choose send. I'm going to use a drop down. I'll just send it back to the hot wallet for simplicity's sake. I'm going to give it a label. I'll just call it hot as I did before. We'll send the max amount, just the fee a little bit, and blue buttons all the way through, finalize. And then we have the option to sign. Now I have one of my cold cards plugged in still, the Mark IV. So I'm just going to hit the sign button. It sees that it's plugged in and unlocked. I can say sign. It's going to send information to my MK4 here and ask me if I want to approve the transaction. Now, it will, for the first time with the cold card, it says, hey, looks like you're part of a multisig wallet. Do you want to actually import this information? So we're aware that what we're unlocking, that this wallet exists. All you need to do is just on the Q, you hit enter. On the MK4, you hit the check mark to approve it. So I've just done that, and it saves the info about this wallet because there's a few more complexities there. I'm glossing them over a little bit, but just know. At this point, it's asking me, is it okay to send? So it says okay to send. I can scroll down. If I agree with the information, I hit the check mark, and that will approve the transaction. I'm doing that now. We should see it pop up here. And so now that I've hit that, it shows the signature. It says MK4, you've got a signature. We've got one of the two approvals needed. Now, at this point, I'm probably in a position where I need to sign and approve with this other key that's somewhere else. So what do I do? What if I'm on a desktop computer? What if I don't have a way to move that around? Now, of course, you can have a laptop and you can take the laptop to where the other key is and then open it up and continue on with your transaction. That's totally doable. The other thing that you can do is you can say save transaction, and I can save a file to my desktop. And that file that I've saved, I can put it on an SD card. I can email it to myself. I can do whatever I want with it to get it to that other location where I'm then going to open it up in Sparrow and I'm going to approve it with the second key. And so we're going to pretend that I've done something like that. Maybe I brought my laptop just for simplicity's sake. Maybe I sent over that file to the other location where there's another computer with the same wallet on it. We'll talk about transferring wallets to other computers later. But we've got this. I've got my cold card Q now, and I'm plugging it in, and I'll put in my PIN, and we'll hit sign for the second signature. All right, sign, scan. There's the cold card. Hit the sign button there. I'll get the info on my device asking if I want to approve it. It will, again, on this device, probably tell me that, do you want to be part of this multisig wallet? But after I've approved that, it says okay to send. I reviewed the information as I've done before and hit enter. And we should see the signature pop up here on the other side. There we go. 2 of 2 signatures that were required. And I can now broadcast the transaction. So off it goes. It'll go back to the hot wallet. There's our notifications. So let's have a quick review of what we've done. Here in the Multisig wallet, we've just sent a transaction, and we've done so by taking 2 different keys and unlocking the funds. You did not have to do them at the exact same time. You could take the transaction information and move it over to a different computer somewhere else and be able to sign it there. Either way, we've used multiple keys to approve a transaction and send it where we please. Now you may be wondering, how do I get this wallet, the same wallet, onto another computer? That in and of itself is pretty simple. All you need to do is, with the Multisig wallet selected, go File, Export Wallet, and you can export this so that it's available in different types of software. But if you're going to be running Sparrow on another computer, you choose Sparrow, export the file. You can label it, but it looks good to me. It says Multisig Tutorial Sparrow, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop. That file that I've created now, again, I can send it over via email. I can put it on an SD card, however, and then on my other computer, and I'll just show how to do it here. I would go File, I would say Import Wallet, and then I would look for Sparrow Wallet Import. I'm going to import that file. And on my desktop, I see it right here. And I would just hit open. It would get me to label it. So right now it's importing it as if I don't already have the wallet. So I'll just call it multi-duplicate so we can see what it looks like. But if you're on a computer, another computer, it would be the same. Create, no password, and it imports everything. So when I'm moving back and forth between these two tabs, it's treating them as different wallets, but this is basically what it's done. It's imported all of the information, including the labels, over to a new computer. So you can take that wallet file, import it somewhere else, and that becomes your second location to be approving transactions. Or you can simply just have a laptop and move the laptop from key to key. So I want to talk a little bit about the nuances of recovery when it comes to multi-sig vaults. When you have a hot wallet or a cold wallet, what happens is you create a key. And from that key, you pull a little bit of information to basically create a map to where your digital vault is, your digital safety deposit box. And that map allows you to say, oh, there's my money. I've got my key, unlock it, pull it out, send it wherever I want. Now, when you have a single signature wallet, the one key that you have, as long as you have the backup, the words, or the device itself, you can always recreate the map to your vault because it's just a little bit of information from the very key you're holding. But when you have a multi-sig vault, you have two keys. And to create the map to your money, you pull a little bit of information from this key, a little bit of information from this key. If you had 3 or 4 or 5 keys, a little bit of information from each one to make this map to your digital vault, where to find your money so that you can use the keys to unlock it. Now, when you're here in Sparrow, the map lives on the computer here. It's saved here in Sparrow Wallet on this computer. No big deal. That's fine. And so we can always see it. We can pull it up. We can see our balance. And most importantly, when we want to spend, we can use our keys to spend out of this wallet because we know where our digital vault is. But what happens if my computer crashes and I no longer have the map here? Well, there's a couple paths to be able to find your vault again. One is to take the original keys, all of the original keys, and recreate the map because you pulled little bits of information from this key and this key to make the map to your digital vault. So you can do that. You can recreate it in the same way that we did before. You can also save a copy of the map, and we've already learned how to do that. That's by going File, Export Wallet, and depending on the type of file you want to do it as, this, using the Export Sparrow And we saved it already to the desktop, the multisig tutorial. So that is a copy of the map. That's all the information you need to find your vault. Now, the only instance where you start running into trouble is if you lose the map, your computer craps out, you don't have another copy of the map, and simultaneously you lose the entirety of one of these keys. So maybe I lose my Coldcard queue and I also lose the backup to the Coldcard queue, the 12 or 24 words that came when I set it up. In that instance, I am not looking good. Now, of course, you're going to say, yeah, of course, you no longer have one of the keys. But the same would pertain to a multisig that has many different keys. If I lose one of them in its entirety and I don't have the map, I cannot regain access to my funds. So it's important to have a backup of the map so that if you really screw up and you lose the map and you lose the entirety of a key, you can still recover. So that little file that we exported before, it's not a bad idea to just take that, stick it on an SD card, or really you could even put it in a cloud account somewhere. Beware, that does have privacy implications, but somebody getting that file will not be able to spend your money. They still need the keys to do that. So I know there's a lot of nuance there, but you will be more than fine if you have the map on one computer here and then perhaps on another computer somewhere else. That's more than enough. If you don't have multiple computers, just save that file and put it on an SD card somewhere. And if anything ever happens, you've really got like an extra layer of security. So if you really, really screw up, you're still going to be okay. The whole point of multisig is to be fault tolerant. You can make multiple mistakes without losing your funds. For this next section, we're going to cover a concept called UTXO management. First, we're going to learn what a UTXO is. Now, contrary to how many people think of Bitcoin, it is more like physical cash than like a bank account. And what I mean is, with a bank account, you just see a balance. With physical cash, if somebody hands you a $20 bill and a 10 and a 5, you can look into your physical wallet and you can see those separate denominations sitting there. And this, functionally in the background, is how Bitcoin works. Now, also, because it's a public ledger, any time that somebody sends you a piece of Bitcoin, a UTXO, which stands for Unspent Transaction Output, they can see what happens to that UTXO next when you spend it. They can also see when you spend it in concert with another UTXO that you have. The same is true when you go to spend a UTXO at a merchant. Think of it like this. If you went into a corner store to buy a candy bar and you pulled out a $5 bill, you would get some change back from the counter. They would see that change. Not a big deal. But if you had a large bill, let's imagine that $1 million bills existed. If you walked into that corner store and then you pulled out a $1 million bill, that person at the counter sees your change. They see that you just spent a couple bucks, but received $999,000 in change. Not that they would have that much change on hand, but the concept still applies. They understand how much money you have because of the size of the bill you just used. And so there are privacy implications in the background when you're sending and receiving funds. And this is where labeling your transactions, as we've been doing, comes into play. So let's take a look here in Sparrow. This is our hot wallet, and this is where all the funds we've been playing with today are located. Now, the hot wallet has received a few different transactions throughout the day, but has also received change from a transaction prior. So we're going to take a look at what that looks like. We have all our transactions here, but where we're going to see what's going on under the hood is over on the left, down under UTXOs. And so what I see here is 3 pieces of Bitcoin. And it says here, UTXOs, there are 3. So I have a total balance of 125,130 sats. However, that is split up into 3 bills, we'll call them, for their UTXOs. I have one bill worth 60,000 sats, another bill worth 59,753 sats, and another bill worth 5,377. The top 2 I directly received from other wallets that I've been sending from. The bottom one is change that came back to me from a transaction I sent to the Multisig. And so if that transaction had been sent to a person, they would know that I have this change here. And so I can actually go ahead and I can relabel these. I can do with them as I see fit. And I can actually consciously choose which UTXOs I use in a transaction if I think it will improve my privacy. So here on this UTXO page, I can actually select a specific one, or by holding down the command button, click on multiple, and I can select which bills I want to pull out to use. So let's say I wanted to use this middle one here for 59,000 sats. I can click on send selected, and it says, hey, you're using this UTXO. This is how much you have, but I don't have to spend all of it. I could spend 20,000 sats from that UTXO, and it could send off to, say, my Coldcard, and I'll just label it here and set my fee. And I'm now able to create that transaction. But this is where we learn about the transaction graph. This is where this begins to make sense. What is this flow? It is showing me I am taking this UTXO of 59,000 sats. I am sending it to this Bitcoin address. This Bitcoin address above for 20,000 sats. And I'm getting change back of 39,529 sats to my wallet. And I'm paying a fee of 224 sats. So I'm taking one UTXO, I'm breaking it up into pieces and sending it to different places. And that is what this graph shows. You can even click on it to make it bigger to show exactly what's going on. So with that, I'm going to clear out all the information here by hitting the clear button at the bottom. Let's do another experiment with how I might want to utilize this. Before we mention that, there is an efficiency and a privacy button down below. Let's say I'm going to send again to my Coldcard queue, but we'll pretend that's a person that we're sending to. And I'm sending to Steve, and I want to send him 40,000 sats. Now, when I do that, it will just automatically select a UTXO that I have and say, this is how it's going to work. We'll use this one. There's the money going to Steve for 40,000 sats. There's the change you'll get back, and there's the fee you're going to pay. Okay, great. But what if I didn't want people to easily be able to tell by using the Bitcoin blockchain and seeing the open ledger who I was paying and for what amount? Well, when you have multiple UTXOs, you can do funny things to make it more difficult to audit what is going on. Somebody may know you have a certain UTXO or a certain bill, but you can confuse how they interpret what you do next. And you can do that by simply clicking the privacy tab. Watch what happens. It now grabs 2 separate UTXOs, and it does some funky things. It sends 40,000 sats to, we'll call it Steve, where it went to. It sends 40,000 sats back to myself, the exact same amount. it sends change of 19,000 sats back to myself. Again, it says sends change of 19,000 sats also back to myself, slightly different numbers there, and then it pays the fee. And what this makes it look like is that two people purposely joined their coins together in a transaction to make it confusing. They don't know which of these two sets of 40,000 sats went to the person I intended to send to, or to another person that's trying to hide their tracks, or to myself. It's really hard to interpret what happens. There's, again, a lot of kind of nuance here in around how people look at transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain. But the main key takeaway I want you to get is by using this privacy tab, it makes it more difficult to interpret how you're using your Bitcoin. It's not a silver bullet. It doesn't completely make you anonymous, but it does help with privacy down the line. And I do try to use it as often as possible. Now, there's one other thing that you should consider when it comes to UTXOs. UTXOs, these contribute to the fees that you pay in your transaction. As you'll recall earlier on, I said that fees are dictated by, one, how busy is the network and what are people willing to pay to get through quickly. But two, it's also by the amount of data that your transaction takes up. And for every UTXO, or for every bill that you use, there's a little bit of an additional data required. You can think of it like if you wanted to pay for something in cash, but there was a small fee for every single bill that you used, it would be much more efficient to use a $20 bill than to use 20 individual $1 bills. You would have less fees to deal with. So you can see here, if I go to my send screen and I want to pay somebody, again, I'll just pull an address from my Coldcard. If I want to send 40,000 sats, it will use the most efficient fee-wise transaction I can do. It'll use one UTXO, it'll send it directly to the recipient, and I'll get my change and my fee paid. Now let's take a look at that again, but let's send the full amount. So once again, choose my Coldcard. I'll just label it as test. I'm going to hit max. Now take a look at this. So if I am sending the full amount, I now have 3 UTXOs. One is going to, my final destination. The other is going to be a fee on the other side. But I'm using 3 UTXOs here. So it adds to the data that is being required for me to send. So I'm going to leave this at the lowest possible amount for the fee at 1 sat per byte. And I have a fee of 20 cents or 245 sats. If I do 30,000, look, I only have 1 UTXO here. I have a fee of 141 sats. So in this case, the amount that I'm sending, yes, is impacted or impacts the fees that I'm paying. But in general, if you want to send a certain amount, but you have a bunch of tiny UTXOs, a bunch of small ones, then that can impact the fees that you pay, especially when fees spike because the network is busy. To get around that, you can do something called UTXO consolidation. And you can think of it like if you have a bunch of gold coins and then you melt them down into a gold bar, that is one piece of money that you can use to spend. And when the amount of pieces of money that you have impacts your fees, having larger chunks makes it cheaper to transact. But you weigh that with privacy. There's no free lunch. It's a trade-off. How private are you versus how efficient and low fee are you? Okay. So you can kind of weigh that as you will, but I'll show you what it's like to, but I will show you what you do to consolidate UTXOs. Let's say I'm looking at this. I'm like, geez, some of these are pretty small, especially this 5,000 sat one. you know, that's a small piece of change, and it could become, you know, it could become a little expensive to be sending small pieces of Bitcoin like that. And so what I would do is I would go to my send screen. And when you do the drop down menu, it has an option that says, hey, do you want to send to yourself and consolidate? That's what this is. You're sending to your own Bitcoin address in the same wallet, but you're melting down those gold coins into one gold bar. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just label it consol. And then I'll send the max. So this takes all of my pieces of Bitcoin. This would only be advisable when fees are low. You don't want to do this when fees are high because it's busy, because you're going to end up spending more money then. So you do this strategically when the time is right. So I can see all of these will be melted down. I will get back one UTXO here for 124,885 sats. I will pay a singular fee of 245 sats. I hit create, finalize, sign, and broadcast. And if it was with a Coldcard or something, I would sign with that device. So there we go. Let's see what happened. Close this. The transaction looks a little funny. So here I click on it. It just shows a transaction of negative 245 sats. That's because no money left the wallet other than the transaction fee. Everything else just stayed here. But let's look at our UTXOs. Now I have one UTXO for 124,885 sats. So I've consolidated the three that I had. I melted them down into one piece of Bitcoin, one UTXO sitting in my wallet. Now, if you're curious more about various privacy techniques, things like that, I'll include a link in the show notes regarding that. There's a number of tools out there that can help with that. Sparrow, of course, does have the Send Privacy tab that we discussed, but there's more that you can do beyond that. I encourage you to check it out. With any Bitcoin wallet, you can have multiple accounts that are protected by the same seed phrase. So we're going to do a demo of how to create an additional account within our hot wallet, but this will apply to a cold wallet as well. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here I'm in the hot wallet in Sparrow. I'm going to go down to settings, and you're going to see an option that says add account. I'm going to hit that. And the way that accounts are ordered in Bitcoin wallets is it starts at account 0 and then it counts up from there. So the one that we've been using for a hot wallet the whole time is account 0. I would just advise to use the very next available account if you want to have this. I'm going to hit OK. And what it does is it creates two separate accounts here as tabs on the left-hand side. There's the account we've been using, and there's this new account, which has a 0 balance. I can right-click and I can rename them. I'll name this one Ben, and I'll hit rename account. And maybe this one was for my wife, so I'll type Lisa, and I'll hit rename account. Now, the interesting thing here is that the exact same backup, the same 12 words that we originally wrote down as backup, they secure both of these, okay? You can always re-access both accounts. I can send between these accounts, no problem. So I can hit send, the drop down, and I can see hot wallet account number 1. Well, it's not relabeled here. I know what it is. And I can send over, put a label. I can send over 20,000 sats, whatever it is. And that will land in this secondary Lisa account here. I can do as many of these as I like all down the side, and all of them are secured by the same seed. That also means that if that same seed is compromised, well, then all of those accounts can be compromised. The other thing to note is that if you go to create another account here with a cold wallet, so I go to settings and say add account for the Coldcard queue, and I say I want to add account 1, it's going to say, hey, we need to get the information from your Coldcard in order to do that. So you'd have to plug it in, or you'd have to do the air-gapped option here. And then you would plug it in, it would give the information to the computer and you'd be good to go. I'm going to revert back. I don't want that extra account. And I'll just hit delete account. There we go. You can do that again if you want. If you don't want this account anymore, I can just delete it. Off it goes. You can always recover it just by hitting settings, add account, and add it again. It doesn't go anywhere. It just takes it away from the view. Let's discuss passphrases, not passwords, passphrases. Every time we've created a wallet here, it's asked us if we want to add a password. And as we've discussed, a password will just protect somebody from accessing the file on your computer. If it's a cold wallet, they can't spend. If it's a hot wallet, they can. But a passphrase protects the seed words, the backup to your money. So if somebody came across your hot wallet and you didn't have a passphrase and they found your 12 words, they have full access to your money. They can spend it. If you have a passphrase, it's like adding a 13th word that nobody knows even exists. And it can be anything. It can be numbers, letters, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, whatever you want is a valid passphrase. And if you type in the wrong passphrase, it doesn't tell you, oh no, that's wrong. It will show you a wallet that pertains to your 12 words and whatever passphrase was typed. So there's no indication if somebody types in an invalid passphrase. It would just show them an empty wallet if it's never been used. So we're going to understand this more by creating a new wallet and seeing how a passphrase affects it. So we'll hit new wallet. We're just doing a hot wallet and we'll just call it test. I'll hit create wallet. We're going to do a new or imported. Passphrases do apply to hardware as well. So you can do that. And typically it's managed from the hardware. So we'll just do a basic 12-word seed as we did the first time. We're going to generate a new one. I'm going to write these down offline just for a sec. I'll be right back. And now this time I'm going to say use passphrase. It says a passphrase is not a password. As I already told you, any variation entered in the future loads a valid wallet, but with different addresses. This feature provides optional added security for advanced users only. Are you sure? I'm going to say yes. Okay. So for this passphrase, I'm just going to do something really simple so that we don't forget it. I would advise if you are using passphrases that it is something that you will not forget. It shouldn't be super difficult. All you're trying to accomplish is just adding a wall between somebody finding your seed phrase and actually accessing your funds. And I will say that if you have family or next of kin that you want to be able to access this wallet in the future, you should write down the passphrase, store it somewhere separate from the seed, but let them know that both exist and they need both to access the money. So I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Please use a better passphrase than that, but we got it. Okay, we're going to hit confirm backup. We're going to use our 12 words and we're going to re-enter them. All right, we've got our words re-entered. Our passphrase still says 1, 2, 3, 4. That's grayed out. That is set already. And we're going to hit create key store. Import. It says re-enter the passphrase to make sure that you know you have it right. And I'll hit OK. Okay, all the info here. I'm going to hit apply. I'm not going to add a password again. That's different. We'll leave that. And here we go. So we're now in. We have a wallet and we have a Bitcoin address here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend I'm recovering my wallet, but I'm just going to use the 12 words. And I'm going to show you that the receiving address that we have, and in fact, the list of addresses we have are different, that it's a completely different wallet. So let's say I went to recover. Let's say I was an attacker. I found the 12 words and I'm going and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to import a wallet here. I found somebody's words, 12 words. I'm going to type them all in and steal all their money. Let's take a look. All right. So if I had found these words, I wouldn't know there's a passphrase associated with it, nor would I likely guess what it was if it was complex enough. And I'm not going to just start typing in random passphrases. So I put in the 12 words. I can't wait to see my payday here, discover wallet. And it's looking for prior transactions. It's looking to see if anything has happened in this wallet before. It says no existing wallet found. There's nothing that's happened in this wallet before. I mean, we know that there's been no activity so far, but this person would already be disappointed. Hey, there's no money here. But we want to check, is this indeed a different wallet? We're going to say we're going to import the wallet anyways. We'll import it. We'll enter a name for it. We'll just say stolen. We'll hit create wallet. No password. Okay. So let's take a look. Let's go back. Here's the original wallet we created. We'll hit receive. First address, BC1. It ends with ECM. Let's go to the stolen one that didn't have the passphrase. Receive. BC1, common start. XEP. Different address. Let's go back to the test one. The first one with the passphrase. Addresses. Take a look. ECM, HP2, UAQ. These are the first few addresses, and you can even eyeball some of the other ones. Let's go to the stolen one without the passphrase. Addresses. XEP, 3K5, WCK. None of these are the same. It is a totally different wallet by adding a passphrase. In this instance, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pick a better one than that. But this adds a layer of security. If somebody finds your 12 words, they don't know there's a passphrase attached, you can give it to them. You can even load the original wallet without the passphrase, the 12 words, with a decoy amount. You could put a couple $100 in there, but then have the actual stash of thousands in the passphrase protected wallet. So really cool feature, available in a lot of different ways. Here's how you do it with a hot wallet, but you can of course do it with a Coldcard and other hardware as well. This next section is going to cover connecting Sparrow Wallet to your own Bitcoin node. Now, why might somebody want to do this? Well, running a Bitcoin node is running a full copy of the ledger of who owns what, the entire history of Bitcoin's transactions, as well as a copy of the rules that govern the network. In doing so, you are not trusting anyone else to feed you information about your transactions and balances. You're running a copy of the ledger yourself. Now, it's very unlikely that somebody's going to feed you bad information about your own transactions. There's not really any documented cases of this when using an open source Bitcoin wallet. However, in the ethos of don't trust, verify, this may be of interest to you. Furthermore, when you are not using your own Bitcoin node, of course, you are using somebody else's in order to check your balance. And so you can consider in that way, you're kind of tapping somebody on the shoulder saying, hey, can you check my balance and my previous transactions for me? In which case they can see that information. And in some instances, they can link that to an IP address that is associated with you. So this is also a privacy preserving act as well. And finally, the other benefit to running your own Bitcoin node is if there were a major push by a number of different parties to change the rules of the network, maybe to increase the supply of Bitcoin beyond the 21 million cap, well, if you're pointed towards your own Bitcoin node, you are basically putting your economic power and pointing to a specific set of rules that you yourself are deciding to run. You must opt into the change. They must convince you to change. They cannot force you to change. So with that said, let's take a look at different ways that you can connect to your own Bitcoin node. Up first, this is Bitcoin Core, this little window that I've got up here. You can download that at bitcoincore.org. When you do, boot it up for the first time, it's going to ask you a couple questions, and then it's going to download a full copy of the Bitcoin blockchain, which it has already done in this instance. That can sometimes take a day or two, depending on the speed of your internet connection and your hardware. Either way, you're going to make one little change to Bitcoin Core. Once it's done, you're going to go to Preferences, and then you're going to hit this button that says Open Configuration File. you'll hit continue here. And then you're going to type in what I already have where it says server equals 1. The word server equals and the number 1. No spaces, nothing. And then you're going to go file and you're going to hit save. After that, you'll need to restart Bitcoin Core. Now, I've already done this, so I can just leave it be. This just allows external wallets to connect to Bitcoin Core to reference it as their copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. Once you've done that, you're going to go to Sparrow in the settings. You're going to select server and you're going to hit edit existing connection. Now, previously, we were using a public server. We're asking somebody else to check our balances. But now, instead, we're going to select Bitcoin Core. This will be filled with the default information of where Bitcoin Core is typically installed. You just need to hit test connection. Right away, I get a green check mark. I can now hit close, and it's going to scan the blockchain for any previous transactions. Now, it does kind of link Sparrow and Bitcoin Core together, so you'll see some variations here in Bitcoin Core that pertain to balances and all of that. Either way, you are now connected to your own Bitcoin node. And furthermore, you can now go ahead and any wallet that you use, whether it be hot, cold, multisig, all of those will refer to Bitcoin Core to check for balances. Now, there are other options that you can also do in order to connect to your own node. Here, I've got 2 instances of hardware devices that you can run on your shelf. When you run Bitcoin Core, it's got to be on and synced in order to be updated so that you can check the most recent balances for your Bitcoin wallets. However, you can also run dedicated machines that are just on your shelf all the time, kind of like an internet router. And so in this instance, I've got one example that a lot of people tend to use. It's called Umbrel. And basically you plug it into your router, plug it into the wall, and then you can download various applications. The 2 applications necessary here are Bitcoin Node and ElectRS or Electrum Rust Server. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that. Again, the Bitcoin node will need time to sync up and download. And then the Electrum server needs time to basically categorize all the Bitcoin transactions for easy searching. So I'm going to click on my Electrum Rust server. There's 2 options. There's local network and there's Tor. Local network would be if you're going to be just using this computer at home with the same Wi-Fi network or internet network as your Umbrel, then you just use this and it'll connect quicker. If you're going to be on the go and you're going to be connecting remotely with a laptop back to your device at home, you're going to choose Tor and copy the information there. So we need this address and we need this port number. That is the info that we need. I'm going to go to Sparrow. We're going to go to the same place, settings, server. We're going to edit the connection. And this time we're going to choose private Electrum. And so I'm going to, from Umbrel, copy my umbrel.local, the URL, and paste it in here. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to copy the port and I'm going to paste it in here. That should be all that I need. I'm just going to hit test connection now. There we go. Green check mark, hit close. We can now see the toggle switch down at the bottom has changed color. By the way, it's color coded. Yellow means you're connected to an external server, somebody else's. Green means you're connected to Bitcoin Core. Blue means you're connected to your own node somewhere via your Electrum Rust server. Now, again, as I said, you can click Tor and you can copy the different address. The port will remain the same, but you'll still be connected to your Umbrel. The other option here would be an example here. I have Start OS, my Start 9 server. Now, this one is a little bit, in my opinion, beefier and a little bit more cypherpunk. I really enjoy my Start 9. This is kind of the main one that I deal with for all of my Bitcoin related stuff. And so this is the one that I typically would connect to and via Tor because I'm on the go a lot. I'll have my laptop and this one, it doesn't fail me. It works really, really well. Either way, I've got the same thing. I've got Bitcoin Core. In this case, I've actually got Bitcoin Nonce. It's just a variation of it, but same idea. But I do have Elect RS here. So I click on it, and then I would just go to Properties. Now this will have Tor connection information about my nodes. So I'm not going to click on it, but it's the exact same thing. You're going to get a URL. It's going to end in .onion, and then you're going to get a port number, which again is 50001. I would simply go to Sparrow, Settings, Server, edit the existing connection, and then I would paste in the appropriate information here, and then I would hit Test Connection and close. Now I'm going to do that off screen right now. What I'll show you though is you can actually label, you can manage the labels for these. So I'm going to label this one Umbrel Local, and I'm going to just have it like that. Okay, I'm going to go do the same thing. I'm going to connect my Start9. I'll relabel it so it just says Start9 Tor, and then we'll come back and take a look at what that looks like. All right, I've now connected to my Start9. You can see connected to Start9 at height 891.530. That's the block. And blue toggle switch in the bottom right, so I know it's connected. And that's pretty much it. So 3 examples: Bitcoin Core, Umbrel on a local network, and Start9 via Tor for remote connections. And any of those will work just fine with Sparrow, along with plenty of other node connection options like MyNode and Raspberry Blitz. There's a whole bunch of different options for plug and play at home. This section here is going to cover how to actually verify the Sparrow Wallet software cryptographically, that it's been signed by the actual maintainer of the software, Craig Raw. This does not just apply to verifying Sparrow software, but really any software that you like from within the wallet itself, which is really, really cool. So as you get updates, things like that, you can verify based on the signature that has a long track history of having signed previous releases. You can check that as you download it, so you know you're not downloading and installing something malicious. So let's take a look at what that would look like. We saw this when we started this whole tutorial, and we navigated to our download screen here. And of course, we downloaded the Sparrow software here. Now, I believe I actually still have that downloaded in my downloads folder. But what we didn't download is some of this stuff down at the bottom. 2 things: the manifest signature and the manifest. And what this does, it explicitly links the software you've downloaded, the original signature of the actual the developer, and those two together cryptographically linked. Hey, this was signed by Craig Raw and his private key. So we're going to download the manifest signature and the manifest. The same would be true of downloading and verifying other software. You download the software itself, you download the manifest signature and the manifest, and we navigate over to Sparrow Wallet. Up at the top, there's going to be something that says Tools. You're going to select that, and then you're going to go ahead and click on Verify Download. It's going to pop up this. And so there's a few things that you can include here. You can also include the public key of a particular developer that is developing whatever software you're verifying. So you can actually search those up and add them in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit Browse. I'm going to look through my downloads here. I'm looking for, and it does specify here, something that ends in manifest.txt.asc. So we're going to browse for that. Okay, and we found it right here. So I'm going to open that, and that automatically populates all of these other fields, and it can see green check marks all the way down, signed by Craig at sparrowwallet.com, and it was done on February 27th, which was the date of this last release. And so everything looks all good, and it says, hey, this file that you have, this is ready to install. We see that it is matched to the signature, so you're good to go. Same applies to if you're verifying other signatures. If you find for whatever reason it doesn't autofill these other fields, you can go and manually select the files appropriately and bring them in. If they're all in the same folder, it typically will do this, but if not, then you can manually import them as well. But I would advise keeping them in the same folder when you go through this. Either way, I'm now verified the software I've downloaded and it is safe to install. That is it. Now, there were a number of pieces of hardware and other items that we used throughout the course of this tutorial. So if you're curious on any of those and you want a deeper dive, first of all, we've heavily used the Coldcard Q as well as the Mark IV in some of these examples. I have actually a full playlist on the various ways that you can utilize the Coldcard and set it up. And so I encourage you to take a peek. There's a full playlist on the Coldcard Q. You can also search for the Mark IV just by searching Coldcard Wallet. Maybe type in BTC sessions as well. And further to that, we also touched on nodes. So we did use the Umbrel. We also used the Start9. I have videos on those that you can search and that I will link down below as well. And then we did mention in and around UTXOs and all of that, Bitcoin privacy tools. And so I do have a Bitcoin privacy playlist. You can peek through that as well and start picking up some additional skills. Either way, don't stop learning just because you've gotten through this video. Continue on and use the tools that you have at your fingertips. By now, you've seen just how powerful Sparrow Wallet can be, whether you're starting with a basic hot wallet, stepping into cold storage, or building a complex multi-sig setup. It gives you fine-grained control over your Bitcoin with features like coin control, transaction labeling, and privacy-enhancing tools. It supports a wide range of hardware wallets, works seamlessly with your own node, and it gives you the flexibility to grow as your Bitcoin journey evolves. If you're looking for a tool that can scale with your knowledge, respect your privacy, and offer full sovereignty over your Bitcoin, Sparrow should absolutely be part of your setup. Lord knows it's part of mine. If you want to go deeper than this video, or if you need some hands-on one-on-one help, reach out to my team over at bitcoinmentor.io. We've got incredible educators that can handhold you through this or anything else as you begin to learn and deep dive into Bitcoin with practical skills. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check the show notes for all of the additional information that you may need to continue on from here. Keep stacking sats, keep stacking skills. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This was your daily session.